Hello and welcome to the Economic Times Rising Bharat Summit. We are having the most comprehensive deliberations on what to expect from the Union Budget. Very happy to have you participate today in the auto sector track of the ET Rising Bharat Summit, where we bring you a keynote and a panel discussion with key leaders of business and policy on their observations and expectations for the sector. We kickstart today's special pre-budget summit auto sector track with a fireside chat with Dr. Pawan Goenka, Chairman of INSPAC and former Managing Director of Mahindra and Mahindra. I am Rajiv Ghosh, Principal Analyst Auto at ET Prime. The topic, making sense of the increasing global color of India's policy for the auto sector. Good afternoon, Dr. Goenka.
Hello, Rajiv.
Is India's auto industry truly global, sir? And has the government policy driven globalization?
So let me first say that last year has been a very good year for the auto industry in India for most sectors, not all sectors. And a very big landmark that has been achieved is that India has now become the third largest passenger vehicle market in the world, overtaking Japan. That just happened a month ago. Now, if you say, is India truly global? I would say yes and no. Yes, in the sense that almost every major player around the world is in India today in different segments. Also, yes, in the sense that the products that are being now made in India are products that are fit for global markets in a large way. Whether you talk about the design aspects, you talk about technology that goes in, comfort, and so on and so forth, they're truly global product. But where we are still not global, in my viewpoint, is that India is not a global manufacturing hub in true sense. We are exporting only about 15% of our passenger vehicles compared to Japan, Germany, and therefore that to me says we are not truly global. And also, none of the multinationals are using India as a manufacturing base for the global product or global supply chain. That applies both to suppliers as well as to OEMs. Until those happen, I would say that India is still not global. Now, the government policies, on the other hand, have really helped in some ways and lacking in some ways in making India a truly global automotive player. Where I think the government policies have really helped are in the areas of safety and emission, where Indian government has driven very aggressively, sometimes against the wishes of the automotive industry, but driven very aggressively, thankfully, to bring us on par with most advanced countries in emissions and safety, which helps us to sell our products outside India, which helps multinationals to make differential product for India and other parts of the world. So that's very helpful. But where I think some more help is required is in because advantage in exporting from India, because India doesn't have FTAs which give us the duty advantage in exporting from India compared to many other countries. And if those two things can be taken care of, then I think India can become truly global.
Okay. So you feel that FTAs are very key to becoming global?
I think FTAs are very important because, say, for example, if you look at Europe, any vehicle exported from India to Europe today attracts about, if I'm not wrong, 10% import duty, whereas vehicles exported from Korea to Europe does not attract any import duty, or maybe very marginal. And that is an 8 to 10% cost disadvantage for vehicles coming from India. And that's a very big sort of hurdle to overcome, even for a low-cost country like India to have 8 to 10% disadvantage.
What else does India need to become truly global, sir?
Well, I think if we were to look at where India is today in the automotive market, we have taken care of domestic market in a big way. And now our vehicles, as I said earlier, are very good in terms of emissions, in terms of safety, and more is being done very good in technology, overall design, quality has reached a level which is international quality, global quality. So I think we need to go into a mission mode of saying that we now need to become a global player. That means focus on export, focus on making India manufacturing hub. And that will have to be done by virtue of, I would say, the multinationals using India as a manufacturing base, and therefore for India to make it attractive for them to use India as a global base, for Indian-based OEMs to produce products that will be for global audience, global consumers, and also to build their brand so that Indian origin players have a brand which will allow them to export in large quantity. So if we can do these things, then I think India can become global. And I would say the next phase of growth of Indian automotive industry should come from global expansion, from becoming truly global, rather than more so in domestic market.
Okay. The government's flagship Make in India program, the PLI program, that is, has a primary objective of import substitution. But, the message which went to the auto industry was that you have to only make electrified components and vehicles to qualify for that. What was the message that was being sent out by the government on that?
So let me first say that PLI scheme is perhaps the biggest enabler that government of India has given to the manufacturing sector, and more so for automotive. The total outlay of PLI for automotive sector is 26,000 crore directly and 18,000 crore through the ACC, Advanced Chemistry Cells, right? So fairly large outlay that they've given to automotive sector, 44,000 crore. And it's not true that the focus is only on electric. The finished vehicle PLI scheme is available for electric vehicles and hydrogen fuel cells. But of course, right now, there are no hydrogen fuel cell vehicles in India. So therefore, finished vehicle is only electric. But for components, the focus is on electric vehicle component as well as advanced technology components. So if you look at like ADAS, if you look at connectivity, you look at GDI petrol engine, you look at airbags, ECUs, advanced transmissions, CNG, biofuel, a lot of this is included in advanced technology components. And that's the right thing to do, because there is no point incentivizing and there's no justification incentivizing body panels, chassis components. By now, we should be good at it and we shouldn't require government intervention. But for advanced technology components, which are currently not being made in India, by and large, imported completely, to provide that impetus is very important. But I would also say that the focus is not simply on reducing import or import substitution, because import substitution can only bring us from, say, $20 billion import today to $10 billion import. So that's the kind of runway available to us. But if we focus on export, which is what PLI scheme should help us do, then we can go from current $20 billion to unlimited number. And therefore, the PLI scheme is both helping us to reduce import, but more so will help us to increase export by becoming more competitive. And if companies are coming in and setting up a shop to make components for India in advanced technology, the same components can be exported also. So PLI scheme will work both ways: import reduction, export increase, and also advanced technology component for IC engine vehicles, as well as components for electric vehicles.
And what according to you is the best part of the PLI policy?
See, I think this PLI scheme is well thought of. And the way I look at this is it's putting the money in the right places by incentivizing what is the future of automotive industry and not incentivizing the past. And the kind of response that has come from the industry is overwhelming. For example, the overall investment that has been talked about in automotive sector because of PLI scheme is 68,000 crores. Investment for advanced chemistry cells is about 27,000 crores. So that's a fairly large investment that's coming in. And that's what I would say, that it's putting the money in the right places and incentivizing the industry to really go take a leap from where we are, rather than going to a continuum improvement, take a leap to the next step, which will help us to become even global.
Right. And we have seen PLI schemes are further increased in many sectors. Do you see that happening in the auto industry as well?
Well, I hope it will happen. The reason I'm saying I hope it will happen is that the current response in the auto sector seems to indicate that auto sector will use up the current allocation of 26,000 crore. And therefore, I hope rather than dropping the ball, the government will be able to increase the allocation to automotive sector to run the full 5 years, so that all the investments that are being made by various companies because of PLI scheme are fully leveraged by the industry. And I would think that after 5 years, industry should be in a position to continue to make those components both for domestic consumption as well as for export. That will be the true victory, true win of the PLI scheme.
Any particular areas where you would want the government to focus in the future?
So I would only put one area because, as I said earlier, the scheme is well thought of, and in all fairness, a lot of inputs were taken from the industry before forming the details of the scheme. And also, one big thing about this scheme is that the benefit that is being given is not marginal. 10% plus benefit is being given. That really makes the difference, so that the industry become competitive. So rather than taking 100% of all components, by taking 35-40%, the government could give higher level of investment incentive for this component. But there's one area that I think could be focused on beyond what is being done, which is the hydrogen ICE engine. That means right now it is hydrogen fuel cell. If hydrogen ICE engine is also supported, that's a more ready technology that can come in at affordable price right away. And that would be a good intermediate step for heavy trucks and long haul trucks and buses. That will be a good intermediate step before the fuel cells become technically and commercially feasible. So I would only request the government to look at the possibility of supporting hydrogen ICE engines.
So this is pretty much the ICE engine, but it will burn hydrogen instead of petrol.
So it requires some modification to the engine, and it requires sort of infrastructure for hydrogen fuel. And right now, hydrogen fuel is a bit expensive, and that's the reason the incentive is required. With time, the hydrogen fuel itself will become very affordable, and then no incentive will be required. And also, it is a way to bring in the hydrogen ICE on the road. So if you can sort of incentivize it and hydrogen ICE engines start coming in, and all the truck fleets can move to hydrogen ICE engine, that will be a huge advantage in terms of overall emission that we have.
What kind of emission reduction happens with this?
Virtually zero.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So in one line, if you can describe your take on the following technologies: battery swapping.
Desirable, but I think interoperability is very important for that to happen.
Okay. Sodium-ion batteries.
Doable, but I think the first application for which technology is more or less ready will be in stationary energy storage.
Okay. And third, hydrogen as transportation fuel.
Well, I already said that I think the future of clean energy for long haul trucks is in hydrogen. Electric will be perhaps very expensive for long haul trucks, and therefore hydrogen as a transport fuel for long haul trucks is very much doable and should be incentivized for it to come as hydrogen ICE first and then as hydrogen fuel cells.
Okay. Thanks for your insights, sir. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Good to talk to you, Rajiv.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining today's panel discussion. We have Mr. Randheer Singh, Director, Electric Mobility at NITI Aayog, and we have Preetesh Singh, Specialist CASE and Alternate Powertrains at Nomura Consulting. So today's panel discussion has one topic, and which is a burning topic. So the FAME 2 policy has given direction as well as fuel to the EV industry. How should it evolve in the future? So let's have a pop quiz to begin with. So without the FAME 2 policy, what would have been the EV industry's sales in calendar year 2022? Would it be 20% lower, 30% lower, 50% lower? What do our panel think?
So Rajiv, first of all, we need to understand why electric and why to focus on climate change and need to switch to clean mobility solutions. Secondly, what it takes to change the behavior and accept the not so prevalent technology versus the one which exists for over a century. Plus, the automobile sector has to go through many regulations. So to make it clear that policymakers intend to shift to clean mobility, financial commitments are made. Second, incentivize the technology which is still at nascent in terms of the adoption and manufacturing in India. Of course, the demand leads to the supply and the manufacturing and establishment of supply chains and the infrastructure. We also need to see which segment is incentivized. Having said that, the EV industry sales, even for the categories which are not part of the FAME 2, is very, very encouraging in the calendar year 2022, which includes the four-wheeler segment, which includes the segment of the commercial vehicle in terms of the four-wheelers, which are not incentivized under the FAME 2. Therefore, we can safely assume that the consumers and the manufacturers have actually accepted the technology. So in terms of the whether the sales would be 20% lower, 30%, or the 50% lower, we cannot actually give it a number, but definitely the FAME 2 has resulted in the faster uptake and the faster demand from the consumers, which is required for the nascent technologies initially all over the world.
Ritesh, what would you have to say on this?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you very much, Rajiv ji, for including me in this session, and a very warm good evening, Randheer ji. It is always a privilege and honor to talk to you. I think Randheer ji has already covered it all, right? And when he says that this is the time probably, or this is the year which we can call as a landmark year, which actually kind of puts an end of the debate whether India is going to move towards electrification or not. So I remember Rajiv and Randheer ji, like we do consulting. So when we talk to all kind of automotive automotive OEMs or tier one manufacturers, there was a question, right, whether EVs are going to happen or not. But those questions are not at all this year. So of course, because Indian government, the policymakers have put a very, very strategic and long-term, it's a visionary kind of thought process, because if every policy is linked, right, if you look at FAME 2, if you look at PLI for auto components, PLI for ACC, import duty reductions, which we call as phased manufacturing program, everything is linked. And that has resulted in the massive growth, at least in last 2 years. So till now, I think role of policy was very, very important. I think if you ask me to put a number in any case, then definitely it is going to be less than 20-30% without FAME or any other policies. But I think going forward, we should debate more around the role of different policies.
You know, the budgetary support for FAME 2 actually went up from 800 crores in FY22 to 2,900 crores in FY23. Do you expect that we should see a budgetary support increase in the upcoming budget itself for FAME 2?
Rajiv, FAME 2's overall bucket size we already know. The number of vehicles which are going to be incentivized, the two-wheeler side, three-wheeler side, buses side, and the four-wheelers, commercial vehicles, shared mobility side, we know all the numbers. So overall bucket is fixed. Within that bucket, the year-wise, as and when the expense happens, the money gets credited to it. So until and unless till time we have that money left, the 10,000 crore is there in overall FAME 2, I think as per the validity, it will continue till 2024. It is not going to happen that this year now for the next 6 or 7 months, you have already exhausted in 4 months. And for rest of the month, there is no money left. That is, of course, it's not going to happen.
So just to continue the discussion, this is, Randheer ji, what I have actually tried analyzing, starting from FAME 1 to FAME 2. So from April 2015, I think this scheme was also for 2 years, but again extended for another 2 years. Allocation was around 895 crores. And out of 895 crores, we were left with 366 crores, which was added into the FAME 2 budgetary allocation. Initially, the utilization was very, very less. Till 2021, it was less than 5% utilization. But then I think there was...
When we remodeled the FAME 2 in last year, after that, there is an uptick.
Yes, there is an uptake. And also, I think there is much more consumer acceptance, much better branding, and also charging infrastructure improvement. So the kind of consumer apprehensions are also not that much. So a lot of budget utilization has happened. If you look at the numbers, less than 40% is going to be utilized. So as Randheer ji said, even after 2024, I also believe at least 30 to 40% budget is going to remain. So we can probably, I mean, it's a policymakers decision, but I think budgetary allocation is not a challenge as of now for FAME 2. And that too, when we have a lot of budget already allocated for PLI for ACC and PLI for auto components. So I'm not sure if we need extra budget in this budget session for FAME 2.
So approximately 3,500 to 4,000 crores is going to be dispensed by end of the financial year, and we would have another 6,000 crores left. So
yes, 2,000. Yeah, in the month of June 2022, around 2,090 crore was spent, and I think there is some amount which needs to be reimbursed, around 1,000 crores. And also 6 months sales. Based on that, we have estimated that around 4,000 crore is going to be spent by, let's say, March 2023. And then remaining, we are going to have the remaining budget for another few years.
Okay.
And the big chunk is allocated to the e-buses, which have now started getting delivered. In fact, 2023 is the year when most of these e-bus tenders, which has happened, those will be delivered during this year, when the bigger chunk of this money will go.
The government set this number targets. So around 1 million two-wheelers, 500,000 three-wheelers, 7,000 buses, and 55,000 cars. So do we, Mr. Randheer, do we need to relook at that targets?
So Rajiv, if you have visited the Auto Car Expo this year, you will notice one specific thing, that the market has taken off in manufacturing. The traditional players are launching the clean mobility solutions in all segments. This is because demand is there. Better established cell technology such as LFP and better of NMC 811 is in place. In terms of the number, we have close to 4.7% penetration overall, and I'm sure this number will rise. Public bus tenders are being floated by CESL continuously, one by one, and very competitive prices are being discovered in both VAT and the dry lease business. High-end two-wheelers are being launched. In fact, these high-end two-wheelers are those which doesn't even fall under the purview of FAME 2. And these also have the waiting period of months for delivery. So moving forward, the market dynamics will definitely play a role with actual numbers rather than any target. So, the revision of target of, let's say, 1 million to 2 million or 3 million. This is not going to be, either a showstopper or something which is going to be a big enabler. Finally, because the market has taken off. And the biggest part is the manufacturing has taken off. Traditional players has recognized that now they have to foray into this business.
Okay. My question was more on the terms of subsidies. If a certain target is reached, say 7,000 buses or 1 million two-wheelers, given that there will be still budgetary allocation left out of 10,000 crores, will the government continue to provide the support till at least FY24?
So, Rajiv, let us understand the economics of EV, how EV economics works. Highest cost in vehicles, electric vehicle, is battery cost. Let's say 40 to 45%. Now with ACC, Advanced Chemistry Cell PLI factories churning out cells by 2024, as per the bid condition, the cost to EVs would come down anyway. The 40-45%, because right now the cells are imported. Once they are going to be manufactured in our country, the price of this 40-45% component will come down by 20 to 25%. Plus, supply chain stability will be achieved, which is right now a big challenge of the cells. Second, auto PLI, which targets most of the advanced auto components, mainly of the EVs, will also see the production for these parts in India itself, which are currently imported or are not available at scale in India right now. So overall vehicle cost will also decline. So you have reduced cost of the batteries or the cells, so to say, reduced cost of the auto components. And third, the business and the operating models like battery as a service, this will decouple the battery from the vehicle for the LEV segment, light electric vehicle segment. And the price of the vehicle will reduce by around 30% when you decouple this. With these measures in place, we need to think what should be the next step for the clean mobility adoption in our country, rather than talking about whether we should continue with the same thing. We can also think about whether we need the revision in the phased manufacturing process now, because the localization level has also reached around 50%. Should we increase the localization schedule? Should the more components be added into the phased manufacturing program? Whether we should go and incentivize some other part of the EV value chain? These are the questions which should be asked now, right? Instead of talking about whether that fame should be continued or whether the economics will work out in the future or not. Because with these PLIs and the business models, I think there shouldn't be any need of subsidy anymore after 2024.
Okay. So Mr. Randheer is trying to emphasize that since from FY25 there would be no need for fame subsidies to continue.
This is my opinion.
This is your opinion, right? What about Nomura view on this?
Yeah, when Randheerji says this is his opinion, we can make a very good guess, right? Probably what is possible in future. So, but yes, in our opinion, I completely agree with what Randheerji has said, that when probably we exhaust, let's say we reach the target of 1 million sales of electric two-wheelers, which means it is very much with subsidies at least, it is very much attractive for consumers. Now consumers have bought these vehicles, they are using this, and this is making very much economic sense for them. So that is why there is a very rapid increase in terms of in sales. In three-wheelers also, there are different applications, because there is a around 25 to 30% operational cost reduction for e-commerce companies, which they are able to do to achieve. So that is why penetration is very high. So and with this penetration, you will see not only startups but also the traditional manufacturers have entered into the game, which means which actually directly or indirectly impacts the supply chain development also. So at least for two-wheelers and three-wheelers, the critical components like batteries, motors, inverters, converters are being manufactured in India. So another schemes like PLI for auto components, PLI for ACC definitely will support in reducing the cost. But in our opinion, at least government should continue with some more time, so that we do not put a stop on the momentum which we have reached. But somehow I also make a guess that because the segments like two-wheeler and three-wheeler are already kind of a good development, so more focus has to thinking and incentivizing the, let's say, supply chain, motors, inverters, converters, and then batteries, and then the downstream supply chain of batteries, because that will directly or indirectly ensure also the future penetration of electrification in India. That is the opinion. Now, I think, let's say two-wheeler and three-wheeler budget is exhausted, because there is some limitation in terms of, right, and the money also remains. I believe that money is going to be put more towards charging infrastructure development or incentivizing buses and other segments. if you look at the cases of like Nexon, so Nexon is being sold without incentives, and most of the vehicles are EV four-wheelers are Nexon. And with the introduction of this CAFE, the stricter version, and the penalty introduction, I think you will see almost all the OEMs coming up with EVs. So they are also going to be a bit of higher range side only. So I think the four-wheeler also doesn't require, obviously it requires, but maybe policymakers might think that it might also pick up with own pace. So the public transportation, buses, downstream supply chain components, more focus on localization has to happen with the remaining budget or with the additional budget.
But don't you think that, even if you look at the cost of manufacturing of the electric vehicles today, they are significantly higher than the cost of manufacturing of the ICE counterparts. And therefore, it would be very hard. We are already seen, for example, as the FAME subsidies got taken away from some of the OEMs, their sales have taken a big drastic hit, whereas the competition which is getting the subsidies, they are gaining market share. So I think there is we are probably, if we have local manufacturing and a lower cost, maybe at that point of time things will be better. But till that point, don't you think that we will require more subsidies to continue?
Yeah, in my opinion, if you ask me to answer directly to this, then I think with remaining money, we can continue similar scheme as FAME 2 for another one to 2 years. Then another 2 years needs to be added so that we do not break the momentum. And all kind of vehicle segments has to be incentivized. Let's say government or policymakers think that two-wheeler doesn't require incentives, then probably they can bring down the kind of incentives which two-wheeler segment is getting, but not removing completely. Because supply chain development is a time-taking process. An entire impact you will see, I mean, it's at least 5-year planning. So somehow another 3 to 5 years incentive should continue. And parallelly, once we have the robust supply chain, including all critical components, then we keep on adding maybe non-critical components also. Then I think after 5 years, we will be in a very good place to remove all kind of incentives.
Yeah, I think what Preetesh said, actually, this is the same thing which I echo. That means the currently whatever budget is there within the FAME, that is around 1.5 billion US dollars, overall 10,000 crores, which includes the 366 crores of the carryover one. This amount is still, although I'm not sure about the exact number, but as Preetesh has also showed, and my calculation also says that enough money is still being left and it's still valid till 2024. I think we have, this is too early to even talk about whether some other incentives are required, something else is required. It's too early. In fact, till only the last year, this momentum has picked up.
Right.
2022 is actually one of the best years when the sale has grown in all segments. Even in the four-wheeler segment, 6,000 plus vehicles are being tagged. The waiting period is very, very high. So I think right now this momentum has to carry over, is to continue for the period at least till 2024, till when this budget and everything exists. And maybe 3-4 months before that is when the discussion could kickstart. Then what next?
So the idea is that at least we will see an increase in FAME subsidies next year, and then we'll have to look exactly where it goes.
No, I mean, FAME as it is going currently, I think it's going very well. After the remodeling we have done last year, on the basis of the learnings when it was not picking up, less than 5% the utilization was in the initial 2 to 3 years when the FAME 2 was launched. And then we remodel and the sale has picked up like anything. And now more than 100,000 vehicles in EVs are being done every month. So I think it's a big achievement, and this momentum has to continue. We have reached around 4.7% of the overall penetration. This penetration has to increase up to the 10%, and this is what we would see by the end of 2023 when the buses deliveries will start. the tender has been done, the companies have won the tender, but still the deliveries have not started to that level. The 5,500 buses, which were 5,450 buses, which were awarded under the wet lease agreement for the 5 cities, those deliveries has to start, right? And that is when the even the utilization of the FAME2 will also increase. Even we will see more of the public transport being shifted to the cleaner ones. Those are the things which needs to happen in this very year.
Right. Mr. Randheer, going forward, is there any segment that the government feels that needs more support, like buses you spoke about, or maybe given two-wheelers is such a big market, we can look at buses and two-wheelers as the support areas, specification.
Yeah, personally, Rajiv, I think that now when I say what next question should be asked, so what in terms of the what next, when market is going to give you the options that even the commercial vehicles are available in EVs, and that is the segment which is from the the decarbonization perspective should be the one of the next target. And I think logically that is one of the segment which actually calls for the support. But we still need to see what type of solutions are available in the market, whether only one or two companies are only providing the commercial vehicle solutions, so that it has to be a distributed one, not the fixed one. So personally, I think that commercial vehicle segment is the next logical choice.
So you're saying trucks and buses, is it?
Yeah, commercial vehicle side. Buses, of course. Buses is already there, public transport, but the LDT and the HDT segment.
Okay.
Light duty segment, the HDT segment is the one which I'm talking about.
Okay. Pritesh, so I think NITI Aayog is probably looking at incentivizing trucks, heavy duty and light duty both, and possibly medium duty as well.
No, not NITI Aayog is looking at. This is my opinion.
Okay, your opinion. Yes, we have Mr. Randheer's opinion that the truck segment needs more support. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I think in buses segment also probably other kind of buses can be added. For example, let's say school buses are not currently part of the FAME scheme. Okay. And the idea was not including school buses is like because they run on fixed routes, right? So utilization is not going to be more. So probably there can be a debate around including school buses or the smaller buses which can be utilized more, at least intra-cities. And then on to begin with, because globally also, I think market even in Europe and US for heavy duty commercial vehicle is very less. Companies like Volvo and others are manufacturing, but volumes are very less. But the development has already started. So as next phase or as a future focus, definitely LDTs and HGTs, heavy duty trucks can be under the plan for incentivization.
Do the light trucks, whether light trucks get incentives today?
Smaller commercial vehicles are, I think, part of the FAME scheme, but not the LDTs and
yeah, smaller commercial vehicles are part of that.
What is your thought process on whether we need to relook at the incentive structure, which is based on the battery size?
I think with any structure, it's just 1 year of the remodeling, and if you keep on doing, keep on changing the structures so fast, it's just 1 year. There are so many things which industry has to do through the vendor to set the process, how the incentive has to work, all those things. And if you keep on changing things, sometimes it's this, sometimes it's that, it not only confuses, but it also increases the compliance burden on part of the industry. I think even so it's too early to put up so much dynamism in this.
Yeah.
Okay.
That the changes in itself, it becomes a compliance burden, right?
Right. So
and that too when the scheme is working well.
Yeah,
So
correct.
FAME 1 was not based on battery size. So FAME 2 is based on the incentives based on the battery size, and they are working well. So I think there is no need immediately to change it. But if you look at like 5-year, 10-year plan, then obviously incentives based on the carbon emission reduction is the ideal way.
Even a tinkering, for example, that there was change per kilowatt hour, that amount was changed. So is there need to relook at that at least, keeping the broad structure same, relooking at say maybe increasing the per kilowatt hour for the light duty trucks and maybe reducing for some other segment. Is that something that makes sense or too early to do that?
I think this is a good question, and government has been very smart in tweaking such incentives also previously, right? For example, you take this example of like increasing the incentives for two-wheelers when they increased from 10,000 to 15,000. Now, if we if we try to make a guess how they are thinking, so let's say if they believe by increasing the incentives on two-wheelers, it has benefited a lot, and now it is a kind of beginning of self-sustainability for two-wheelers, then probably in future, as I mentioned earlier, also slightly reduce for two-wheelers, increase for the segments which are not picking up. Those kind of things definitely can happen, but it's all within the same framework.
Got it. Right. The next question: are we done with the regulations around battery safety and localization?
I mean, if we look, Rajiv, internationally and of course historically in every field, this is actually ever-evolving learning exercise. Technology in terms of the cells, powertrains, and semiconductors is evolving for new use cases. Therefore, accordingly, these regulations also need to evolve with time. You can never say that this is done. In fact, the cell and the battery technology is like you can only two of the technologies are now known, but there are almost 10 technologies which will come in the next 5 years. So you know NMC, you know LFP, you know LTO, but do you know enough about sodium ion? Do you know enough about aluminum air, zinc air, supercapacitors, lithium sulfur, lithium carbon? No. So as and when these technologies are at the verge of commercialization, the safety regulations and the regulations around the localization, all these things has to come up, right? They also need to evolve with them.
Preetesh, what's your sense on,
Yeah, I mean, similar opinion, because if you look at so safety, we are talking because of the fire incidents, right? And recently we did analyze globally about the fire incidents. You name any country, you name any vehicle manufacturer, fire incidents have happened for all of them. And probably they are much lesser in India, honestly speaking. So, so policy has to evolve, and whatever problems are coming based on that, there has to be a new policy, new restrictions, new regulations, but it is going to be ever evolving. For example, as Randheer mentioned, that everybody knows, right? LFP and NMC chemistry in batteries is going to be the mainstream, and probably in the future it is dominated by LFP for some vehicle segments. But even technologies like LTO, right? There are already applications, not in vehicle segment, but other than vehicle segment, LTO batteries are also again implemented. There are pilot projects around semi-solid batteries, solid state batteries. So globally also, they are not into the commercial stage, right? By, let's say, they can be commercialized by 2035 in Europe. So another 2-3 years it will take to come to India. So it's a I think a learning process, and it takes decades to kind of conclude on this, whether we are done with the policies for different technologies or not. Even in IC, right, we are like 40 plus years at least in India, but you can't say that we are done with policies.
So, consumer subsidies has been the focus for FAME 2. Do we need to progressively look at more funds for, say, EV charging? Should government look at funds for other things, like, for example, skilling the manpower for electric vehicles? What is your thought on this? First, we can have Mr. Randheer give his view on this.
So I feel that industry needs to prepare its existing workforce through reskilling and upskilling. That is for the existing. At the same time, academic institutions and diploma institutes must focus on skills that will help the future automotive workforce to deal with this transition. Many institutes, in fact, we have engaged with the IITs that have already started EV specific courses. In fact, 16 of the IITs have already started EV specific courses, and we may see more joining in. Now, coming to the charging part, two-wheelers are mostly home charging, and the issues are there at the apartment level. In those cases, the destination charging facilities has to work. In case of the buses, depot charging is the one which is the ultimate solution as of now, but later on, the opportunity charging type of solutions has to be deployed. In case of the four-wheelers, 70% plus four-wheelers across the world, they follow the destination charging norms, not only in India, across the world. Now, in terms of the, there's one factor. So in terms of that increase in EV connectors, it is increasing with faster rate versus the increase in the vehicle fleet in India. In fact, I'll put you one number. In India, the increase in the charging connectors normalized by vehicle fleet is 93% for 2022 H1 versus the 2021. Next is the Italy with 43%. So India is far, far away in terms of this increase. So yes, it is increasing, but as the fleet is increasing, you understand, not in the absolute numbers, but the delta, that increase is very, very fast. One more thing which I would like to add here is the awareness part. This is also one thing which we need to build in terms of the zero emission vehicle adoption, using low carbon mobility solutions and switching to the more sustainable modes. In fact, one of the programs which we are doing is the named Shunya, is actually targeted towards building this awareness. These are the three things which I try to answer your question.
Yes, Preetesh, what's your thought on this?
If you look at the policy making in India, so in the policy making side, I just would like to show you, So this is how we look at policy formation, right? So FAME scheme, then import duties, and then the PLI scheme. FAME incentives will help you developing in the charging infrastructure as well as the market creation. That is kind of happening now. And first level of assembly level localization is to be ensured by increasing the duties, which is the phased manufacturing program. Then going one step down and going for the real level of localization, PLI schemes are working fine. But if you look, these are the core policies which are driving the electric mobility in India, and also intends to address basically the manufacturing import dependence, carbon emissions, and also your energy security. But for the long-term policy making purpose, we have not touched upon this availability of talent, right? So that becomes an issue. So now, because we have not thought about it, and suddenly because there is a lot of growth in EV, including other alternate powertrains also, so there is a shortage of the talent. That is obvious. Now we have only, let's say, three ways, right? Either industry prepares the talent, or academia prepares the talent, or government-led R&D institutions, right? Now the government-led R&D institutions like DST and others, as well as the academia, will take some time. So like Randheer ji mentioned, 16 IITs have started courses. We are also supporting some academic institutions in preparing their courses around EVs, obviously taking reference from the courses from IITs. So another 4 or 5 years, if I just talk 5 years as the long-term plan, I think academia is going to be able to supply the talent pool. But till then, industry has to reskill their existing workforce, or there are online portals, there are initiatives like startups are there, they are training resources. With that, we will have to manage. So this is initially the responsibility of industry mainly, and then for a longer period of time through industry academia collaboration, I think it is going to be addressed. But yes, for another 2-3 years, industry has to take the lead.
Industry has to support it from their own budgets.
In my opinion, there is no way also through which government can incentivize industry for preparing their own people, right?
Okay.
I have no I have not seen any example. Maybe Randheer ji can.
No, I echo with Preetesh on this.
Full steam ahead, essentially, for the EV industry.
Yeah.